Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the shelf, my new favorite thing that is also about to be destroyed as this tree is going on a journey for now. But yeah, this is the 3 months into a tree video, and I wanted to start this off before I have to zoom in by showing you what I've put together, which builds and conventions I've chosen to keep up with the tree. As we talk about what it's like owning one of these 3 months in, have my opinions changed? Has the hype died down or anything changed? And in my opinions, and what I think of it now, because obviously there was a lot of, not even recency bias, but just obviously it was a big deal when it came out. So I wanted to have a look back now that things are a bit more rational as we approach the winter season, and some of you might be considering whether or not to buy the set, and give it one last look and sort of see if it still stands up, if I have any regrets. But yeah, I actually want to start by looking at the upgrades that we did for the tree. So obviously, if you don't know, we have plenty of opportunities and options in the upgrades video we did to show off different modifications you can make to your tree, such as this Korok backpack. You've got extra flowers and adding these bean lights to the Breath of the Wild version. I've changed my Silent Princess colors. You'll notice a significant amount of Koroks. I think I got about 9 at this point as well. And then of course I've got the figures all over here, including the Deku nuts. If you want instructions for Goma, or to be honest, any of the side builds that come with the tree, I have side builds for if you build the Ocarina version or the Breath of the Wild version over on rebrickable, as long as free instructions for Goma here as well. Free instructions for Skyward Sword Link also went up last month, so you want to check those out as well. And if you are sick of your tree already and want to turn them into the Wind Waker version, you can indeed do that with also free instructions over on rebrickable. But yeah, everyone's just around. We've got Hestu, we've got plenty of different animals. I spent a kind of obscene amount on Korok face tiles, but also on just getting squirrels and multicolored birds. There, where is he? That one there cost a pretty penny from the D&D minifigure series, and this blue one here as well. We've got a white one, and there is a yellow one in, oh, there he is as well. Cool. Yeah, and I've even put one up there as well. But those are most of the modifications I made to my copy of the tree. You would have seen a while back I did do a double pedestal mod. I've changed that back, and I've just kept the extra pieces. I need to work out what I'm going to do with those, but I do have an extra pedestal build, so we'll see. I'll make a decision as we go, and then yeah, just more custom builds over here. So have my opinions changed? No, not really. Specifically in regards to the price. In my 2 hour and 40-minute review of this model, I stood by my original decision. The set was fairly priced, or at least was a price that I was willing to pay. And I do still stand by that. Specifically, now that we're living in a world with a sail barge and an X-Mansion, both of which feel either on the same level or slightly worse deal-wise when I look at it on paper. Obviously there's some IP bias going on there, which I think makes a huge difference, but I cannot look at those sets and say I would willingly pay their retail prices for, when the Deku tree, even with my bias, yeah, I do. I think what people don't understand is this model is significantly larger than it once, and of course the new mold amounts. Now I'm not going to go deep into this because I've done it before, but just in case you've missed those videos, it's purely the amount of new molds and prints that they've done for this. It's just insane thinking about the cost. So about 6 years ago, I was tipped off to the idea that new molds, or frames as they call them, cost about 30,000 Danish kroner to produce, and that doesn't, also $30,000 US to produce, and that doesn't include obviously the R&D time, the storage of the molds or storage of the parts, and doesn't include prints, of which there were a lot of new prints in that set. Remember, it's 3 Korok tiles, it's 2 faces per character, and then a torso, and then the legs are actually counted separately, prints on Hylian's shield, prints on the sign over there, and the Tula as well, whether he's gone, and the Deku baby sprout as well. And anyway, lots and lots of prints. But new molds wise, it's a sword, shield, hairpiece for Zelda, that's 4. New hairpiece for Link, that's 5. And we do have a 6th in the Ocarina as well. So that's 6 new molds. If each of those costs $30,000, that's 180,000 upfront cost, and as I said, that doesn't even include half of it just to get this IP off the ground. So yeah, the set's expensive. Now, part count rise, but price per piece doesn't matter. Build experience wise, I was happy. The set is considerably more voluminous, specifically this version. I mean, look at the depth on that, but also just in general, the way it feels and the way it sits on a shelf. I am happy with the price I pay, given its volume and its presence, and then also the quality of stuff like the figures. That being said, I have heard some interesting stories. There was a misprinted Link leg, which I believe was in the wrong color. And then there was a green hairpiece where the color had bleeded all wrong. So yeah, it does happen. And I've also heard issues of cracked torsos and stuff as well. But then again, this is all normal and in the extreme minority. So it's not really specifically on this set, it's more on the company as a general, and we need to campaign for that to be fixed because it is getting a little bit out of hand, I think. Actually talking about colours. One of the things I wanted to bring up in this sort of go back over was the color palette that they chose, is because when this is in low light, let me try and see if I can simulate that here. The colors sort of actually blend together, specifically the olive green and the dark tan. Now this is actually fantastic because it really does create that natural mottled texture. So when I've been looking at this thing sort of all the way back here from a distance and even further in the night or the evening hours, especially in winter, it has really enhanced the effect, and it's not something I picked up on initially. So I'm really pleased with that. Just noticed how this is twirling. Naughty. You can tell I play with that. Let's give his mouth a go while we're here. But this also does create a downside, because if you're building in low light or bad lighting conditions, these colors blend together and it's absolutely awful and an absolute strain on my eyes. So for a good effect, it has a big negative, which is not great, but it's absolutely fine. One of the blocking elements that I also really like color-wise is how like just much of a chunk, and because those colors are synonymous, you've got one unit of two colors, and that makes the rest of them really pop, because you've got these bright splashes at the top, this huge lump that takes up your focus and draws your eye but isn't too much, and then you've got all these bright different colors. And I realize I am sort of overstimulating that by bringing the light yellow and the oranges down even more than they were, but mostly it's just green and brown with a little bit of tan. But the green and the pink are really the two standouts, and it just really brings this to life and makes it so bright and colorful, which is why I think I chose the builds I did to flank it on either side, because they really do just suit the shelf that they're on. Yes, even Cogera, who's all grey. But the reason I bring this up is because of just how cohesive it is, and how the more and more I think about it, the more impressed I am with just how, I don't know, cheery, or how, I don't know, fantasy? I don't really think there is a word that exists to describe how much I love how the colors interact. Because I want to call it a warm palette almost. I feel like I'm gonna stick with that. It feels fresh and colorful and new and exciting. It's a unique combination of bricks and colors, obviously, which I think is really important. It's also just so Lego, which I really love. Just like the more I look at the build, the more I'm like, oh yeah, this is a Lego set specifically. And it's so surreal that I have one of these for the Zelda franchise in front of me. But again, it sounds stupid to bring up, but it just kind of feels like that next era. It feels like that first step, just like how when Mario came out in 2020 and we had stuff like the NES, we were really witnessing the revolution of building techniques that this new sort of batch of elements had brought forward. And while we're not specifically seeing a batch of new elements lead the revolution here, this does just feel like the next step in some ways. And I really can't put my finger on why, but every time I look at it, I'm just like, that is a modern model, which is not something you can always say for a build in 2024. But yeah, I'm just really singing its praises because it deserves it. And I'm really happy with how good it feels and how new it feels and fresh. It's the same feeling I got in 2020, which is not something I expected when getting it, even though I was expecting many feelings, some of which I didn't get because of the attachment to the IP. I wanted to also talk about the canopy in comparison to another big tree set, which is the treehouse, which unfortunately I don't have with me, but the idea is treehouse, which almost exclusively used this big 5-element prong piece here, with none of the decoration of these smaller prong leaves, even though they did exist at the time, which created a much more dense canopy than, say, what we have on the Breath of the Wild tree. But wasn't as good. When I look at this feels more natural, and obviously it's more layered with two-tonal colors, which, to be fair, the treehouse was as well. But this was more parts intensive, yes. Looks more sparse, but to be honest, I like the detail and the effect, and the fact that it's got more of that hard plastic on there. But I think it really is the two-tonal nature that saves it. Now, the trees that actually really are the next evolution forward is this new element that was introduced in 2023. And I love that it's got that design language of the 3-pronged flower piece in it, but they're all together. And this just lets you build up thicker canopies so much easier, because these are just such holy pieces. So the ocarina tree really benefits from that, and I really quite love the canopy on that. So two sets 5 years apart that were both based off giant trees. One, I find the bark on this one to be considerably more appealing, which is helped by a lot of new curve shapes for sure, and also the new prevalence of dark tan and olive green, which certainly weren't there at the time. But also, I don't think the treehouse would have been right in this color scheme, so doing it in reddish brown makes complete sense. But as far as like an organic structure goes, but with the new canopies and the new colors, this works 10 times better than the treehouse, and I think I'm gonna have a hard time going back. It really does age that model, which I wasn't expecting either. So the canopies are just huge upgrades that I'm really pleased with how they've come out in comparison to that tree, because again, there was nothing wrong with the treehouse canopy, but now looking back, it just makes sense that this is better. better. Quick side note then, in the instructions, I didn't point this out before, but I noticed that the little progress tracker is not a stud like it is for most 18 plus sets, it's actually Navi. That's cute. I didn't look past it because obviously they're basically the same build. Navi is literally a stud, and usually in icon sets, it's literally just a boring 1x1 round thing that's just going along the bar. But no, it's Navi, and I just completely missed it, so we're bringing that up now. Let's talk about things that I've changed my opinion on. In the Ocarina of Time tree version, in my initial build, which wasn't in the review, admittedly, I missed off the little roots that were present down at the bottom. And to be honest, when I rebuilt it for the review video and then I lived with them for a little bit, I don't like them. I don't know why they're there. They're not accurate to me, and I really do think the tree looks better with them left off. Not the big curve panel ones that sit around the back corners, but just those little ones made out of the pieces that the Breath of the Wild tree uses for his jaw, actually. And I just don't like them at all. I don't know what it is, I really can't explain it, but I just don't like that detail, and it would be my recommendation to leave them off. I've now rebuilt this tree 6 or 7 times, speaking of the rebuild. I'm not sick of it yet, although there are certain elements that I still continue to question or consider tedious. For example, when I change the trees between versions, I never take the leaf stems apart. And currently in my bag of extras for the Ocarina version, these leaves are all pre-made so that I never have to do that again, because oh, that would be something. As far as the actual process of changing between both trees, if you don't want to completely do the build experience, it is doable in both variations. A lot of reviewers made it out to be like it was the most difficult thing ever. It's really not. Specifically, if you go Ocarina to Breath of the Wild, it's a cakewalk. If you go Breath of the Wild to Ocarina, yes, it's a little more tricky to work out what's needs to be changed, but it really didn't bother me. Like, isn't that part of the experience? And if you're really stressed about missing something or just aren't having a good time, just take the whole thing apart and rebuild, well, I suppose everything but the Master Sword section here. So just rebuild all this, because you won't regret it. It is a fantastic build, and that's actually how I chose to do it after the review and after I built the Wind Waker version of the tree and then changed it back to Ocarina and then Breath of the Wild. I rebuilt it from scratch, of course, because I had to. So from the Wind Waker version, and yeah, from scratch, the build works the same. And to be honest, as is always the case, if you build with all bags open at once and you're happy with that, like I am, you get a longer experience, which is fun because it lasts longer because you've got more pieces on the table at once, unless you know beforehand. But anyway, you build how you want, really, to be honest. Yeah, and to be honest, it really is just surreal that I still have this here in front of me. Like, I would never have thought the day. I mean, I feel like I've had these guys, like these little side builds for 2 years now, right? Or something like that, although Congo is a little newer. And I never would have dreamed that they would stand side by side with a centerpiece like that, and it's magical. And this itself has just blown me away looking at it the whole time. Like, it's not even that special, but I love this so much. It's just so good to have. And I still may not be my favorite icon in the entire franchise, right? Like, not my favorite thing. Like, if I could have chosen one Zelda to have, it wouldn't have been the tree, right? Like, I'm never gonna have picked that first, but it's still such a special one, and it works so well. I can see why they chose it, and it's just such an impressive set, visually and in technique wise, and what they've done. It's just, whew. Yeah, no, I really don't have words. Yeah, I'm still in love with it, basically. One thing I'm not in love with, though, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get a shot. Oh, you're gonna see my spare hair stew down there. It's the bed. I am not a fan of the Korok bed build. Again, this is like another thing I said earlier, where I can't explain it. I could not stand building it every time, apart from the first time. I have been so weirdly infuriated by the build of that bed, and yet it looks fantastic and the techniques are interesting. But for some reason, that micro build every time just kind of makes me mad, and I don't know why. But yeah, that's my newest random gripe. One of my older random gripes, which I'm now over, is her, of course. This is the figures. Breath of the Wild Zelda here was sort of the laughing stock of the 4. She's still incredible, but we had some complaints about the negative hip space. But to be honest, I've just moved past it. No figure is perfect in general, but also just the more I look at her, the more I realize how well they capture the likeness in the elements they did do well. Like, this hair mold in particular is just perfect, and like, it's just, again, it's surreal to have her one as just to be here, but also, yeah, no, they did a really good job. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I feel like I was too harsh on it, because all 4 of the figures here are just fantastic. I mean, this is like almost potentially my favorite, but then also he is so good. I mean, if we had SS, it would be my favorite instead, but I think I'm going to go with him. But it becomes a question of, these are both fantastic. Who am I going to vote for? Or who am I going to choose to vote for Brickset's end of year figure poll? I feel like it should be him. But I almost want to nominate her, because although she's a flawed figure, it's just, her silhouette, it's just perfect. And maybe I'm biased because of the fact I drew her back in the day, but I don't know. It's just, I've really come around on her for some reason, and I really can't explain it at all. Okay, so loose end points. Firstly, space restraints. I've seen a couple of people now tell me that adding this to the front, which of course does change the look of the model and make it look significantly better, is awkward because this adds quite a lot of depth to the model, specifically about that much, which isn't standard for normal shelves, making this overhangs. To be honest, I would just let it overhang. Again, it's not a problem for me, but I am lucky in that regard. Maybe when I put it in its final location, I will have more trouble, but it is worth bringing up that it's not particularly space friendly, despite having good dimensions and no sticky out bits and no obtuse lengths. So yeah, just be aware of that. Although to be honest, I really don't see the harm in displaying that separately, but I mean, it doesn't look great for the Breath of the Wild version, but if you did Ocarina, then yeah, put them separate for sure. International boxes, weirdly enough, why were the American boxes not lift up tops? I'm kind of jealous, but also I really love my lift up top box, so I'm not really complaining, but it is worth noting that there were regional differences, and that was weird. Next set theory. I don't want to go into this too much because we will do the theorizing in my proper video on this in January, but I could see us easily getting another DTC September time. I could see us getting playsets in the summer, but again, I feel like that's less likely over time. And to be honest, I'm realizing these days that the classic games will never get playsets. If we get playsets, it will be entirely based off Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because none of the other games have enough like casual popularity, which is just it's the unfortunate truth. I hate it, I agree, but you can see it just based off obviously how the people watch the content, right? People watch content based on those games, but never as much for the older ones unless they're brand new, and even then sometimes not. And the other thing I can see for sets in the future is potentially reusing these molds. You wouldn't want to let these all go to waste as a one-off thing. So a set that puts basically these two again with no new parts or with new outfits, but still keeping the hair molds, Master Sword, Shield, and so on. All the same for adult and child links, so that you can save these two molds as well. But to be honest, my more likely one is these two, because they're the ones with the 4 new molds between them, with the 2 hairs, the sword and the shield. So my prediction, and I've said this before, is Link's final stand, where you leave him identical as he is, and you reprint her hair piece in the praying dress, and then you give us a guardian, which is so iconic and people want. And then that's it. I think that's your next set. 60 to 80. I'll give them up to 100 to do it. And that's my most likely bet. But beyond that, I don't have much to say. So, do I have regrets? No. Do you think you should buy the tree? I do. Do I think you'll have fun with the tree? Yes. Has my opinion changed from the review? I think it's lovely. It's my favourite set of the year by far, just because obviously of the IP attachment, but just in general, I had a lot of fun with it as a build. I'm looking forward to years of fun with it, and I really wanted to have it decorated for Christmas for this video, but I'm sorry, I just did not have time. So, final thoughts. I still love 77092, the great Deku tree, and I think you will too. Let me know how you're getting on with your trees down below, and I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.